Hello, everyone. My name is Charlie, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the leaders in the nonprofit sector and comparing them to the leaders in the for-profit sector. To start us off, I'll give you a little bit of an overview of what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the nonprofit organizations, the role of the executive director in those operations, the characteristics that an executive director will have, the role of the for-profit organizations in our economy, and then the role of the CAO, the Chief Administrative Officer. And we're going to be comparing those two different sectors and those two different roles today. And Laura will be continuing us on.
Hi, everyone. I'm Laura. I'm going to be discussing the operations of a nonprofit. So just wanting to give a bit of an overview. So some of the main differences between the nonprofit sector and the for-profit sector are simply the organizational structure. So the main difference being that there is a board of directors in nonprofits. So a CEO for a for-profit company would have to report to, whether an owner or a founder. But in the case of nonprofits, the CEO or executive director is reporting to a board of directors, which is often volunteer-based. So it's a bit of a unique organizational structure in that sense. Another main difference is the mission and purpose. So in the for-profit sector, that's often a secondary piece for them. Their main piece being building a profit off of selling a product or service. But in the nonprofit sector, it's focusing on a social cause or issue and trying to address that or solve that. So quite a bit of a difference there. The other difference is financial resources. So in the for-profit sector, obviously they are creating a profit through a product or service, and then they're able to use that profit in any kind of investments that they would like. But in the nonprofit sector, they are quite limited. So a lot of their funding is coming from donations, grants, or government funding. With that funding comes a lot of restrictions on how it's spent. So they don't necessarily have the same freedoms with what they do with their money. And the last piece is the measurement of success. So in the for-profit sector, it's typically looking at an income statement or a balance sheet will let you know how well an organization's doing. But that's a lot more difficult in the nonprofit sector. So we rely on impact reports. So these reports could include, for a housing society, it could be, how many people they got off the streets and into housing, how long that housing's lasted, anything like that. That does become challenging because we are used to measuring success, usually in a numerical value like a balance sheet or an income statement. So an impact report can be quite a bit of a different measurement of success. But I'll pass it on to Eric now to discuss some of the responsibilities of the executive director.
Great, thanks, Laura. So the first couple of responsibilities are engagement and governance. The ED needs to make sure everyone in the organization, from the board all the way down to the volunteers, is engaged. Next is strategic planning. The ED needs to make sure the board stays on target and is able to reach the goals they're trying to achieve. Next is fulfilling the mission. The ED needs to make sure the board is understanding the mission, and they need to make sure everyone else in the organization is understanding the mission so that it can be fulfilled. Next is financial and operational management. They need to make sure nothing unethical is going on because it could wreck a nonprofit. It could destroy trust they've built with many partners and people within the organization and the community. Next is brand and marketing. It's important to build a strong brand, and to market that brand, you need people to know what you're doing and how you're doing it, and that will gain support. And then lastly is engagement. You need community engagement in order to get the most out of the organization. If you build strong engagement with everyone in the community and in the organization, everything will work. Then next, I'll talk about characteristics. So there's some important characteristics an executive director must have. The first is seeing value and impact of their work. The ED needs to understand how the work they're doing is valued by the people receiving it, and they need to show that the impact is being made. Showing compassion and empathy towards cause and the people they're serving. And the people they're working with create strong relationships with coworkers and the community. Shows that the ED cares about what they're trying to accomplish and that they fully support it. They want to work well with the team in order to achieve organizational goals. Like I said before, working well with the community, and then also working well with government. You need to show that you're going to get results, and it just makes people want to get more involved when they see the transformation you're making. So now I'll pass it on to Kelsey.
Okay, so now I'm going to be looking into the for-profit organization and operations. So within the for-profit organization, there's a strict organizational chart. It follows a strict hierarchy. Governance and performance is handled to increase overall profits and the return on investment for shareholders and the public. Specific to this presentation, we are analyzing operations within a local municipal government. So that's like the city of Kelowna, for example. And we've looked into the overall structure and the use of the resources. So the municipalities, they ensure continued provisions of services in the community and determine the development of infrastructures, investments, and programs. So municipalities specifically ensure a balanced budget, and by doing so, they impose taxes to fund these public services. Certain taxes that are levied by the organization are known as municipal taxes. Job creation and economic development are vital aspects that determine the longevity and the growth of a community. Municipalities operate with a strict hierarchy, like I said, and they operate with a council, and those are usually paid employees. They have the capacity to approve and deny any proposal presented to them. Therefore, they always sit at the top of the organizational chart. They function as a legislature to deliberate decisions, and they're also known as a policy-making body. And the CAO sits below the council, who works closely with the body to implement strategic plans and goals. And now I'm going to look into the CAO responsibilities. So within a local municipality, it's more common for there to be a CAO rather than a CEO. And a CAO directs the operations of the entire organization and controls the day-to-day operations. In order to properly implement all the projects and services to the community, the CAO is in control of the budget, overview and determining which opportunities are feasible in accordance with the direction of council. The CAO within a for-profit organization works very similarly to an executive director in that they have to have effective communication with council, staff, and community partners. The main difference being that a CAO is more focused on generating profits, but they also create policies in accordance with council to reach these goals that are facilitated, and they act as a liaison between staff and council, which is similar to an executive director within the nonprofit sector. And now on to Charlie.
Hello, everybody. So to finish this off, we're going to go by comparing the two different organizations. So a nonprofit organization, one of the characteristics that it has that makes it different is they serve multiple purposes. An example of that is you could have an organization such as the one that we studied in our course this year that focuses on their primary outcome is to reduce homelessness within the community, whereas a for-profit company would be looking at a single focus, which is creating profit. Another characteristic of nonprofit organizations is that they tend to be smaller with overall size. A lot of this just comes from the fact that a lot of them rely on fundraising their own money or getting government grants, which just restricts their ability to grow. This also means that their leaders tend to be more hands-on. Just because it's a smaller organization, an executive director can have many roles. There's a lot of examples that we've heard from in our course this year, but there's a lot of ways for them to be involved. Also, one of the unfortunate characteristics of a nonprofit is they tend to be restricted in the way that they can grow. The best example that I've heard of this is that it's some would consider it almost unethical for a nonprofit to advertise for what they do in order to generate more revenue, so they tend not to do that. A characteristic of for-profit organizations is that they tend to vary in size because there's no real limits on their ability to grow. They also happen to be like because they tend to be larger, they have the opportunity to more specialize in their roles. So you'll have a higher end leader that's focused entirely just on human resources, another one that's focused entirely on research and development, and so on and so forth. A lot of this is just because of the fact that they are unrestricted in their ability to use every tool in the free market in order to grow. And finally, to wrap it all up today, companies in the for-profit sector are given a lot more freedom to achieve their purpose, which is just creating profit. But one of the things that we found in all of our research and looking at the skills of both a CAO and an executive director is that the skills are pretty much interchangeable. They both require a high level of expertise and leadership ability, but we don't feel that there's a major difference in the requirements between each sector. So we don't understand why there wouldn't be an ability to have a free flow of brain power and skills and people moving between each area. The only real difference that we found is just the purpose at which they operate. So in all, thank you very much for your time, everybody, and enjoy the rest of the class.